Yeah, this is Shakespeare, I think, at his most nihilistic, at his most pessimistic in many ways about the human condition. One of the things about Macbeth that fascinated me, it's sort of discouraging in a way, but he never really recants or repents for any of his sins. He just, he sort of, I mean, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow is a philosophical outlook that is, what can you say? It's a bleak look at life. When you call God an idiot, I mean, it's pretty strong stuff.
It's clear there's a good deal that's gone on prior to the start of the play, so I kind of get the feeling of almost this prolonged nightmare, and somehow Shakespeare is elevated to great art.
Absolutely. Some of the greatest poetry that he ever wrote is in this play. And I think one of the great problems with Macbeth for most actors is to be able to reconcile the soldier, the warrior, the poet, and the philosopher with this extraordinary imagination that Shakespeare has given him.
And I think even his warring, as we depicted in this particular production, shows not only his great skill as a warrior, but it also shows his ingenuity, his imagination as a fighter.
Right.
There's great street fighting going on here, too.
Yes, exactly. Right. It touches on many different aspects of power and ambition, but it also, there is a vulnerability to Macbeth, and I think the vulnerability lies in, first of all, his susceptibility to his own desires, his ability to be seduced by evil vibrations, not only from his wife, but also from the witches. And those things are fascinating, because I think we as members of the audience all watch this knowing that somewhere deep inside of us, we all possess the ability to be seduced and tantalized to come over to the other side.
Hail, lesser than Macbeth and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none.
The witches, if you watch them initially, are wonderful, mysterious creatures.
Right.
And then they become increasingly more disgusting as you become involved.
Right.
To the point of really, this is a summation of temptation to sin, isn't it?
Exactly. Temptation is the key word, I think, and sin, yeah. The big question in my mind, and I think, and many scholars' mind, all the research I've done, is how much of this was going on prior to the play?
Yes.
Before the play starts. How many of these thoughts have been going through his mind? How much of a discussion has he had with his wife about the possibility of becoming king, of killing Duncan? And the conclusion that one has to come to, I think, is that, yes, there has been some talk about it. When the witches give him that, when they say, "Hail, King," and Banquo says, "Why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair?" Obviously, something has been going on. I mean, so it's the layering of that experience and trying to figure out exactly what it is, what specifically he's been thinking about.
So
it becomes the actor's task.
Yeah, it may not initially be the exposure to the witches that's kind of brewed this Gnostic belief of his that his salvation will come through his intuition and knowledge of the supernatural or the spiritual.
Exactly.
But somehow this has been going on for some time.
Yeah. And he still deliberates about it. He's still not sure. He says it can't be good, it can't be bad. And he weighs things. He does have the ability to weigh in the beginning, and that goes away after a while. I mean, once he kills Duncan, oh, that's it. I mean, then he has descended into hell, is absolutely assured, and he knows it. He said, to know my deed, 'twere best not know myself. And that's it. For me, that's the moment when he really enters the world of madness.
This one did laugh in his sleep, and one cried, "Murder!" And they did wake each other. I stood and heard them, but they did say their prayers, and it rested them again to sleep.
They're too lodged together.
One cried, "God bless us," and "Amen." The other, as they had seen me with these hangman's hands, listening their fear, I could not say Amen when they did say God bless us.
Consider it not so deep.
But wherefore can I not pronounce Amen?
I love it when he comes in with the blood on his hands, and he talks about hearing those two young boys, one saying, "God bless us," and "Amen," the other. And Macbeth wants to know, why couldn't I say amen? I needed blessing more than anybody, and amen stuck in my throat. To me, it's just it's just Shakespeare at his best. Absolutely the most incisive human behavior.
Do you think his inability to say amen in a way is his one little iota of belief in the supernatural?
Perhaps.
Or the life beyond in a way?
The life beyond, I think, because he, as he says in the previous soliloquy, he would jump the life to come if he could just, if it were done when 'tis done, and it could be done right now. The life to come, I think what he's talking about is hell. In other words, if it could be done and there wouldn't be any ramifications, it wouldn't come back to haunt him, we wouldn't have to worry about it. And just before he goes to murder Duncan, he says, when he hears the bell, he says, "Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven." And then, or to hell.
It's such a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Milton's Paradise Lost is so similar. You have
Exactly.
this great angel among angels who
Right.
chooses power over the Lord and then is cast down to this burning lake in hell. I mean, it's
right.
Milton's Paradise Lost in a way.
Yeah. Well, I've often thought that Macbeth, because of his deeds, becomes a satanic angel, in a sense. I mean, he becomes one of the witches in that respect. He becomes an instrument of darkness, and it consumes him.
His fertile imagination, his ability to continually reinvent himself, must make this the most difficult type of character to do on stage.
It's very difficult. It's the most. I mean, having done Hamlet and Richard III and Coriolanus and Falstaff, it's without question the most difficult. And another thing, I think a trap for actors is to try to make him sympathetic, to try to make him likable to an audience. You can't do that with Macbeth. To say, "Poor me," I'm a victim. He's not a victim. He's a victimizer. He is a victim in the sense that he cannot. He has a lot of obstacles to overcome, particularly when he goes back to visit the witches, and they give him a pretty bad time. And he does get the prophecies that set up the latter part of the play, but he's not a victim.
Beware, Macduff. Beware the blade of light. Dismiss thee. Enough.
But there thou art, for thy good caution. Thanks. Thou hast set my fear aright. But one word more.
It will not be commanded. Here's another, more potent than the first.
We'd mentioned some of the other things you've done. Hamlet is one of them. Hamlet is obviously involved in a certain amount of moral degradation here, but Macbeth takes it one step, then another step beyond. It divides and subdivides itself to the lowest common denominator, essentially.
Ending up with nothing. Ending up ultimately, except for this sort of, and you kind of respect Macbeth for it, his desire to stand up and fight no matter what. And you know, that's respectable, but I think respectability is about all you can give to him finally. You can't say, "Oh, that poor guy." You know.
And yet one redeeming quality about him, and you've played Edmund, of course, and you've played Richard III, is in comparing them to those villains, at least Macbeth doesn't celebrate his deeds and look upon them as virtuous.
No, he doesn't. No, he does not relish them necessarily. He, unlike Richard III, who really enjoys evil, Macbeth, he does it because he feels like he has to. He's compelled to do it. He's obsessed by it. But he doesn't really enjoy it, I don't think.
There are a great many biblical overtones in this piece. My gosh, it's just loaded with them. I saw one writing that said that you could almost liken Macbeth and Lady Macbeth to Adam and Eve, and that the witches were somehow the serpent, and you could almost envision that prior to the start of the play that they had whispered these foul things in her ear.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And the way that the set has been done, I almost get the feeling that Duncan's purity and that light, you know, you've really essentially murdered light or the hereafter, that in a way you could almost think, with all the references to darkness and the fouling of day, that the crucifixion can be tied in here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting that it was set in a pagan time.
Have you ever played this part in a more glorious set? I mean, here is this complete circulatory system. This is the microcosmic view of Scotland. This is a body. In fact, it's hemorrhaging, and there's even blood thrown on the carcass.
It's an extraordinary, Ming Cho Lee I mean, I've known him for years. He designed the set for Hamlet, when I did Falstaff, also when I did Peer Gynt years ago. And I was thrilled when I was told that he was going to do this set. And people see many different things in this set. They see all different kinds of symbolism, but the one thing it does provide, it provides a definite environment for this play to live in.
It's a metaphor also for what's going on inside of
His head.
Macbeth.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. This play takes phenomenal energy.
Yes, it does.
Phenomenal energy.
It does, physical and mental, yeah. More so than even longer. I mean, Richard is a much more demanding role physically than Macbeth, but Macbeth, from an emotional point of view and from an intellectual point of view, is exhausting because he always has to start afresh every time, as you said very, very aptly. He reinvents himself each time, and it's exhausting. It really is, particularly on the weekends.
I can imagine in multiple performances.
Here's a place reserved, sir. Here, my good lord. Move, your highness.
Which of you have done this?
What, my good lord?
Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me.
I've never seen anyone mix together a blend of humor and tragedy within the context of the banquet scene where this uninvited guest of Banquo appears. Your performance at that particular juncture is mesmerizing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I can't take all the credit for that. There's a little of that is an homage to Sir Laurence Olivier, Lord Laurence Olivier, who I never saw do Macbeth, but I read accounts. And Kenneth Tynan writes a very a wonderful accounting of the banquet scene where Olivier did jump on the table. And that was Olivier meant so much to me in terms of my career that was my sort of homage to him. It's a very theatrical scene, and I think it demands a kind of theatricality, and also it allows Macbeth to reveal some of his humanity in that scene. And
he certainly is vulnerable there, isn't he?
He's very vulnerable, most vulnerable there, I think, than he is. Even perhaps after the murder of Duncan, more vulnerable there because he has an audience.
All the aides-de-camp don't know what to make of it.
No.
They've never seen him like this.
Right. And they
yes, and they ease their way out, don't they?
And it is funny. It's funny, but in a nervous laughter kind of way.
Now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is.
My worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you.
I do forget. Do not muse at me, my most worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity which is nothing to those that know me. Love, and health to all.
There are more references to giving great face in this play than I can remember.
Right.
And I jotted down a couple of them as I'm seeing the play.
Right.
Hard to find the mind in the face.
Right.
Face is a book where we can read strange matters. False face must hide what false heart doth know.
Your face, my fame, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time, bear welcome in your eye.
And I'm wondering if, in a way, Shakespeare is saying here that I am presenting to you the ultimate face in Macbeth, the total manipulator of the face, one who, if anyone, can hide his deeds.
That's a very, very interesting observation. I hadn't thought of that, I'll be honest with you. I really hadn't. I think of it more in terms of the idea of the public and the private. In other words, what the politician does, the smile, the hollow, what we have to present, the self that we have to present in public in order to accomplish our ends, our goals, whatever they happen to be, and what we are really feeling inside, what's eating us up. That's what I had interpreted, but I had never thought of it in your terms, but that's really
The ultimate face.
the
that we're
ultimate
seeing.
face.
Logic would say that alone, we are not only the most with ourselves, but the most ourselves as well. We do things, we say things unobserved that we would never ever dream of doing with witnesses. We indulge our favorite, fondest fantasies, envision and enact our loftiest goals and roles.
I saw you in solitary confinement.
Right.
And which brings me, since we're talking about face here, you had a great line in solitary confinement that we can somehow liken to Macbeth, saying that if you really want to know somebody, then you look at them while they're by themselves and what they say when they're in their own company, as opposed to the face they put on outside in society.
Exactly.
So Jannings, in a way, has a certain Macbeth quality to
Well,
him.
I guess he does. He has a lot more fun when he's alone than Macbeth does, though.
He has more play things, though.
That's right.
Yes.
He had more. He could play golf with himself, and what was the song? By Myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He sort of enjoyed being alone, I think, Jannings. Macbeth, I don't know. I don't think he enjoys solitude. Mm-hmm. I think he tries to. I think he tries to adjust to it, but he doesn't have much time because they're coming for him. Macduff is on his way.
No. We have allowed foreigners to devour, decimate, and dilute our pocketbooks, imposed no trade embargoes, single-handedly financed countries who have no intention or capability of repaying our loans. And while we have quaked in anti-American sentiment and desperately tried to calm the tempers of 100 silly little demagogues, all this while, no one has ever worried about what we might do.
Jannings embraces technology and ultimately falls victim to it. Macbeth embraces spiritualism or the supernatural and ultimately falls victim to it in a way.
Exactly right.
Outside forces that dictate the actions of the character, that's got to be the great work of any actor, to try to show those things, those forces.
Yeah. It's tough, too. It is tough to do that because you need to see the forces. If you see the forces and the forces are clear, and Shakespeare certainly does that. And I guess Rupert Holmes did, too, to a certain extent.
Yes. I first saw you in Indians at Arena Stage many years ago.
You were a baby.
Yes. Well, no, actually, there were about 5-10 years ago. And you played Buffalo Bill at the time.
Right.
And I was so impressed with you. You went on to get the Tony nomination on Broadway for one of your first endeavors. But you told me a story once of having lost the head of the stick horse you rode, and you've got to share that with us again.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it was my first night on a Broadway stage in front of an audience. And I rode, it was a papier-mâché horse that had a head that was on a spring. So when you pulled the reins back, the neck would go back with you, and I could control it and make it look like it was riding with me. Then I had a skirt, a black skirt around my legs so you couldn't see them underneath so I would ride around in a gallop and pull the horse's head back. Well, I was so nervous. The first night I hit Broadway stage, and I came galloping out and ran around, and the idea was to run up on this platform and rear back and take my hat off and do the traditional sort of. Well, I pulled the horse's head so hard, I was so scared, his neck snapped right off. I didn't know what to do. I got out of the costume. I took the horse in my arms, and I came forward, and I delivered the opening soliloquy with this dead horse in my hands like that, and got through it. And about 4 weeks later, this woman came backstage after the performance and said, "Mr. Keach," and she said, "I enjoyed your performance." She said, "But what happened? I came to the first show, the opening night, and saw that wonderful moment where the horse's head broke. Why did you take that out?" So, I mean, I guess actors do things to cover, and sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't.
I also saw you in probably one of your most demanding roles, other than, of course, Macbeth, and that was in the Kentucky cycle as you aged and evolved in what was a tremendous theatrical epic.
Yeah, it's funny, we were talking about Kentucky Cycle earlier today. I love doing the Kentucky Cycle. I think it's a great piece of writing. I was naturally disappointed that it wasn't as well received as I think it could have been. But You know, it was, the experience of doing it was fantastic, and I think Robert Schinken, I think that work will last a long time. I'm very curious to see what Kevin Costner is going to do with it now that he's secured the rights to it and is going to do it as a, I guess, as a film.
Howdy.
Howdy. You happen to see this charming young couple recently?
Well, now, we see a lot of couples in here. Just checked in tonight.
Room number?
What'd they do?
If I tell you, I'm going to have to kill you. So I strongly suggest you just give me the room number.
222.
I love doing comedy, and I don't get much a chance. I'm getting more opportunities to do it in film now. Not maybe as much as I'd like to, but I've done a couple things for the Showtime network. They seem to...
Amanda and the Alien.
Amanda and the
on
Alien,
right
that's,
now.
That's the most recent endeavor.
Cute piece.
That's fun, and I enjoy that. And I did a thing, John Carpenter's Hair, about a guy losing his hair and going to David Warner, who gives me this potion, and of course the hair all begins to grow. And so I like doing things like that. But usually the kinds of comedy that I get a chance to do is fairly broad.
All right. All of our units have received their positioning orders. We have 100% containment in a 1-mile radius. Now, in the unlikely event that containment fails, additional posts have been established here by Colonel Guildenstern.
Rosencrantz.
Doesn't matter, we're not going to need them.
I have to ask you, as long as we're talking about Amanda and the Alien, if the pun, when you make a statement about Guildenstern, oh well, and then the other detective says, well, let's get Rosencrantz, they said, no, we won't need him. If they put that in there for you.
I confess they did. I was very pleased for it. I was very happy to see it.
Yes, you're the voice of reason in that piece, aren't you?
Well, I don't know about or insanity. I don't know, but that was fun to do. Amanda and the Alien it's a real spoof on, as we said, science fiction movies, and alien movies specifically, and a lot of fun. You happen to see these two pass through here?
A lot of people pass through here.
Yeah. Well, they aren't wanted for murder.
They all look the same to me.
Thelma, I've had a very long night, and I'm not in a very good mood. Now, unless I get just a little bit of help, I'm going to mess up your pitiful little grease pit.
We don't like to hear people talk to Thelma like that. Maybe you owe her an apology.
Yeah? Well, maybe you and Jethro better mind your own business.
And there's another great moment which you pull off so nicely in the diner when all of a sudden Thelma's giving you a hard time. And you try to demonstrate some of this reason over passion here. And, and we know that the NRA is alive and well.
We certainly do.
It's an hysterical piece. When we talked last, there was a possibility of resurrecting Mike Hammer.
Right.
There was something in the offing. It's been a few years now. So I'm wondering, is that still in the works now?
You know, it keeps coming back. I keep talking about the possibility of doing it. I'd love to do it if we could find a script or find a story, you know, that would not just be, oh, there's Mike Hammer 20 years older, you know. I mean, I think if we could find something that would be interesting, it would be worth doing. He was a great character. I love playing him.
Tomorrow. And tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out! Out, brief camp! Life's but a walking shadow. Poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot. full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Stacy Keach's portrayal of Macbeth certainly speaks to us today. For crime, tyranny, and murder are all faces of the same monster. Our efforts should somehow be to eliminate them in our lifetime. Until next time, remember, art was meant to be appreciated, so you be a part of it.